Professor K. Ife.
In the initial meeting of last year, I shared the MSME charter that I developed for ECOWAS Commission, which is now global because it's now being implemented in Africa and EU. Secondly, I shared my own vision of how we need to move forward. And then in this version today, I think my focus is how do we hit the ground running, because we've done a lot of talking. So many policies, so many things, but it's about hitting the ground running. And let me say one thing. We have to, as an Igbo community, think global, envision global, but act local. We have to act local because the challenge we are trying to face is how do we lift the Southeast geographical region. Because we are doing well globally, we are doing well in Africa, we are doing well all over Nigeria, but all of those do not translate to employment at home. They do not translate to lifting people out of poverty at home. So we have to do something to say how we have to put our resources where our mouth is. But the way I envision it is this: how can Southeast be to Africa what China is to the whole world? That is, if you are thinking in the context of the Africa continental free trade. So how can we project ourselves to Africa and become to Africa what China is to the entire world? And I think no tribe, no state has the power or the potential to do just that more than the Southeast state of Nigeria. And I will also say, in envisioning this, look beyond Nigeria. We have to look beyond Nigeria. But as Mazi would say, I spoke in his Southeast SG, what's it called, the summit group. I laid the same challenge at the summit group, where I was saying to them, look, there are two things here, two agendas. We have trade in services and we have trade in goods. In trade in services, we are okay because all our banks are all over Africa. All our digital economy, we are digital champions of Africa anyway. And our cultural and creative, they're all over the world. They didn't need government support as such. So when it comes to trading goods, just sort out the protocols for them and they will run. But when it comes to trading goods, we haven't actually got things to export. Are you going to export raw materials? So what is it that you are going to export? I put the same challenge to Southeast, our people. What are we going to export to the whole of West Africa? We're already doing things all over the world. We have diaspora, 17 million Nigerians are in the diaspora, bringing in over $24 billion. We know that. Part of our challenge is how do we weave them into our strategy. So I want us to think about that. And what I put forward is this. The greatest challenge facing us as a nation, apart from all the nonsense NNPC have done to this country, and I always say it everywhere, every day on the television, is that we have an import-dependent economy. And that is by design, colonial design. Even from 1945, we were conditioned to be an exporter of raw materials, and then they will process them and bring it for us to consume. To the extent that European Economic Partnership Agreement wanted 80% of our imports. So you don't even expect us to trade with other African countries, China, Japan. So, no, it's we and them. And of course I said no, because when it came down to my table, I said no, that's not going to work. So how do we reverse this? How do we reverse this? We have to adopt what we call export-led growth strategy. Please understand that Nigeria doesn't have we don't have industrial policy in Nigeria. You don't know that. We don't have industrial policy in Nigeria. We should have industrial policy for Southeast. We don't have trade policy. We don't have trade policy in Nigeria. We don't, as of now, we don't have trade policy. When I was the UK trade advisor to the Nigerian government in 2012, I wrote the chapter on trade facilitation. Aganga didn't present it to the Federal Executive Council. The last one was 2005. It should have been every 5 years. Till today, we don't have one. Southeast will have our own trade policy. So once we have those two, then you can talk about a strategy that I have mentioned, where industrialization has to sit in the middle. It is about industrialization. And when you talk about industrialization, I want you to hear something. When you talk about industrialization, you always try to begin with areas of natural advantage that you have. So what is it that God has given you? Endowments. And what he has given you, you have an inalienable right to add value to those. So that is your starting point. Then there are other natural ones that came along as well. That, like if you look at Onitsha is good in trade. You have go to Aba Leather Works, and you go to Enugu Digital Trade, and then you go to Ebonyi Agriculture. They're all added. Why? So we have to be strategic in our thinking so that you can mobilize the resources necessary for you to make that impact, and then think global in our outreach. Okay. Now, I want one more before I get to the, I don't want to use my presentation. You have it, you can have it, because that's going to take more time. There are two types of partnerships that we need to develop. When I spoke to Fred 2 days ago, he said, oh, we want to raise 200 billion naira fund. I said, yeah, that's fine. But let's start small and grow big. First of all, there are two types of partnerships that we have to cultivate, believe it or not. One of them is triple helix knowledge transfer partnership. Second one is resource mobilization partnership. Those are the two. Because it's important for you to leverage every resource, wherever the resource is. Whether the resource is in Bank of Industry, or Exim Bank, or Bank of Agriculture, or foundation here, foundation there, upper foundation, whoever it is, leverage those. SMIDA, because they are already there. And you have a captive audience. You are still part of Nigeria. But you must have the infrastructure. You must have the, what is it that you are giving to them, so that you can access that resource. So we must be able to provide some kind of entrepreneurship training, yeah, some kind of awareness, yes, some kind of mentoring activity. Because one of the challenges we are having is that what used to be a defining factor in Igbo entrepreneurship, which you see in Alaba, you see everywhere, is our apprenticeship system, but it's facing challenge because it's dying away. So we need to create another form that delivers exactly the same, leveraging all the technology, leveraging innovation, so that we need to focus on that. But then, while you provide that skill, entrepreneurship skills and whatever, you have to have your handle on all of those resources that are already here, wanting to give those people some seed fund. Just let me be practical. Bank of Industry is ready to do business with every state. They said, because you bring us 2 billion, we'll put 2 billion, and then we'll go down 4 billion for you. We'll lend to your people. So why are we not using that? So if the 5 states can do 2 billion, BOI will put another 10 billion and a 20 billion pot to be accessed by your people. Then SEBIS network is doing the training, doing that, using online, using all kinds of platforms to train people that will access that money. It does not stop us from raising our 200 billion, but it gives you a start, immediate start. You are on ground. It's so easy to build up when people can see what you are doing. Remember, Dangote has his foundation, doesn't he? But Bill Gates has much more money in his own foundation. But when he saw what he was doing and doing it effectively, they had to come. In fact, even Bill Gates, the man that had much more money than Bill Gates, called Bill Gates and even gave him more money to do his. But you have to start something. It doesn't have to be to start something. Whether it is online, wherever that facility is, start it. So that everybody will begin to look at you as somebody that provides that training, that provides the mentoring and matching of these people that want training to you, and then they begin to access. And any money that comes in can buy those small tools that they need to make a start. 250,000 naira, 500,000 for them to make a start. Anyway, so this partnership I mentioned is to do in the area of bio-entrepreneurship, digital trade, innovation, creativity, technology, e-commerce platform, mentorship, especially linking with the diaspora. So that is one. But there's a second one, which is very important, because this one is about resource mobilization. And this is more about access to finance. That is where your money is going to come to. But that is also linked to industrial infrastructure. Because when you look at what we have already, you know that if you go to Aba, you know, in fact, that reminded me actually. I remember when I was doing some program for DFID, they were telling me that I have to focus on 60% of their money must be in this region up there and that, and then hide and skin. I said, okay, but even if they do hide and skin in a Kano and Kaduna, are they not going to be, is it not Aba that will use them in making sure, okay, Aba can come in?